And when you can't solve the perfectionism, the people pleasing, the self doubt, the anxiety, when you can't solve it, not only does it just keep you from being that best version of you, from joy, from your full potential, but also when you can't solve it, you start to feel a little bit like you're broken.
People pleasers and perfectionists often live in a state of this mental prison, or they can often live in a state of victimhood. People pleasers and perfectionists often desire to be free and feel more joy and inner peace. And sometimes it is so difficult to be in those states when we are riddled with anxiety and pain. I am Kim Gross, and I'm the host of Masks Off for People Pleasers and Perfectionists. Thank you so much for being here today. And I am so excited and so honored to introduce my guest. I haven't had a guest in a while. As you know, I have been doing many solo podcasts. So I am very excited to have today Daniel Packard, who is a mechanical engineer and CEO of Full Liberation Technology. Daniel and his research team spent 8 years and over $1 million in research and development to reverse engineer an innovative system that's helped thousands of people live much happier lives by being free of what holds them back quickly and permanently, with an industry leading 90% success rate. So, thank you and welcome, Daniel. I would love for you to share with the audience what they might be able to take away from this episode today.
Thank you. First, I want to thank your audience for even being aware of the people pleasing and the perfectionism. As you know, most everybody is doing it on some level, but to be aware of it and then want to do something about it, I commend your audience for that. And let's be honest, even though it holds us back to face these things, it takes real courage. So I appreciate your audience. They're a one percenter, not maybe financially, but spiritually one percenters for even wanting to improve this for yourself and the people you care about. And I want to use your audience's time with a lot of value because people's time is limited. And I want to explain why your audience would even listen to this episode. What I want to be talking to is the people in your audience that struggle with not just people pleasing and perfectionism, but also maybe some anxiety, some procrastination, self-doubt and low confidence, overthinking, overwhelm, the usual suspects that keep us from joy. And if your audience is on this podcast, they're already been working on these things for a long time. And what your audience has probably started to figure out is that you can learn tools, resources, apps, retreats, coaches, that what it will do is it will help you improve and manage it, which is great. However, it's almost never solved. And when you can't solve the perfectionism, the people pleasing, the self doubt, the anxiety, when you can't solve it, not only does it just keep you from being that best version of you, from joy, from your full potential, but also when you can't solve it, you start to feel a little bit like you're broken. There's something wrong with me. I should know better. Why don't I do better? There's guilt, there's shame, but also it's just exhausting. This stuff is exhausting. And so if that resonates with you, I want to help your audience by talking about something that doesn't get talked about a lot on podcasts such as this, and that is the topic of results. And by that, I mean when you hire a coach or a therapist or go to a retreat or an app or read a book, is that thing or resource getting you results? Meaning, is it solving it? Are you getting a permanent result? Is it a fast result? Is it a measurable result? The topic of results is this topic that doesn't get spoken of a lot. And I want to explain to your audience Why, no matter what they try or what they do, it's like they never fully solve it. They're always seeking, they're always trying, they're always one step away from being that best version of, but they don't ever solve it. And I want your audience to know why. One reason is so they don't blame themselves and they think it's their fault. It's not your fault. It's the fault of what I call the industry of personal development, spirituality, self-help. I call it the improvement industrial complex. And this is a $1 trillion industry where $1 trillion a year is spent globally. However, our research showed almost none of that was getting anybody permanent results, certainly not fast results, which explains why $1 trillion is spent each year, is because people have to keep spending money. 10% more is spent on being happy every year, but the national happiness index is down, anxiety is up, depression is up, addiction is up, and suicide is up. So people are spending more and more on trying to be happier and getting worse and worse results. I want to explain to your audience why, the dirty little secret that the big Thera doesn't want you to know, which explains why they benefit from you being part of the $1 trillion. And then I also want to share with your audience a few key perspectives that my company made that can help them get better results moving forward with whoever they hire. So if you just want to gain information on a podcast, there's tons of podcasts with lots of valuable information, but information doesn't always equal results. If you want not only information, but how to get better results, meaning solve this stuff quickly, that's what Kim and I are going to talk about now. Any thoughts or questions you have on that, Kim?
So before we do jump into that, I do know, and I'm so excited, can't wait until you dive in and share with us what you're going to offer. But I do know that you also have a backstory. And I would love if you just shared with the audience a little bit about your story and how you even got to this place. Because again, as I shared in the intro, you're a mechanical engineer. Well, how did that carry over into you want to help people overcome anxiety, fear, self-doubt, people-pleasing, perfectionism permanently? I would love for you to share that with the audience.
Usually when people first hear mechanical engineer, procrastination and anxiety, that doesn't track. But as I'll explain, it actually makes a lot of sense. And it's because our company is based on results. That is our mission, getting people results. And the reason results matter to me is because when I was a kid, my dad was a physicist and he sat me down and said, look, anybody can have a theory or an idea, but you don't know who knows what they're talking about. The person who knows what they're talking about is the person that gets results. And he said this phrase that stuck with me, which is results matter. And that always stuck with me, this idea of like, yeah, anybody can say anything, but who's getting results? Results matter. Results is what makes our lives better. So I like this idea of getting results, and so much so that I became a little inventor. When I was a kid, I would make things, and my dad was generous enough to let me use his workshop. I would come up with little ideas for my bedroom, for my bicycle, and he would let me go into his workshop and build things. When you first build something, it never works, but engineers and innovators iterate, test it, get results, and refine it until we develop something that gets results. It's a lot of fun. You complete this puzzle. I went to engineering school to learn how to be properly trained. How do you look at a seemingly complex, unsolvable problem, break it down into its smaller mechanical components, then build a prototype or a system to get results? It never works in the beginning. And then you iterate, you refine, you experiment until you get something that gets results. It's a certain attitude, tenacity, and a focus that engineers and innovators have. The good news was I was very good at making machines work. The downside is I was never taught how to make life work. Among other things, I stayed in an abusive relationship with a woman for way too long. Disney lied to me on that one. You don't always live happily ever after. When it was all said and done, I had crippling anxiety, complex PTSD. My self-doubt was the worst it's ever been. The people-pleasing, the perfection, it had all gotten worse. So like your audience, I want to fix this. So I go to retreats. I hire a coach. I read the books. I do the vision boarding. I did the ayahuasca. I did all this stuff. I spent 10 years and $100,000 trying to adjust this stuff. And after 10 years, I remember it, I was sitting on a beach in Mexico, and I just had this awareness of I just spent 10 years and $100,000 on this stuff, and it's still here. It's a little bit better. I had a little more confidence. The PTSD was down a bit, but I just was unhappy. I knew there was a version of me that was in here that was trying to come out, but 10 years and 100 grand. And I just, I kind of broke down and just got pissed. I was trying to be a good little personal development student and be like, no, I'm always peeling back layers of the onion. At this point, I was like, screw the onion. And I looked up to whoever's up there pulling the strings and I just said, what do you want from me? I get this is a test. I'm here, but what's the test? 10 years, 100 grand, doing the same stuff? What do you want from me? I didn't expect an answer, but I got this answer, which was results matter. All this stuff I tried didn't get great results. It didn't solve anything. And I got this awareness of, oh my God, I know how to get results. I'm an engineer. I know how to innovate. And this industry needs innovation. So naively, I thought, well, I'll start a research company to see if we can engineer a permanent solution for the anxiety, for the PTSD, for the procrastination, the people pleasing, the self-doubt, and apply engineering and innovation. And I say naive because it was harder than we thought. But the thing about innovators and engineers is we're tenacious. We just go after the solution. It took 8 years in total. And I was the first person to feel it because I was one of the case studies. I remember waking up one morning just being suspiciously calm. And I thought, well, it was a suspicious calm. But I thought, there's no way this is permanent. This stuff's always temporary. 1 week goes by, 1 month goes by, 3 months goes by. Chill as a cucumber. I didn't care what anyone thought of me. I didn't care about anything being perfect. I couldn't procrastinate if I tried. I was just doing and working. And my team said, we did it. We figured it out. And I said, no, we figured it out for me. We need to systematize this so that anybody can get these results. That was always the mission. So that took another several years to get the system down to where now we have a 90% success rate, meaning 9 out of 10 people that try the program get to be free of it. So in a bit, I'm going to explain to your audience some of the key discoveries that we made to get better results so that they can use that to get their own better results. But first, I just want to tell you that I've been just chill as a cucumber for the last 10 years, and it's my default. It's permanent. I'm like a kid again, and it's glorious, and it's what I want for the world.
Yeah, I love that. And I'm really happy that you are in that state. Let's talk a little bit about what you think is the root cause of why people stay stuck. Why do people have these limiting beliefs that keep them stuck in these patterns? They're on this hamster wheel going around and around and wanting to get off and yet can't.
So there's a couple answers. The first that I want to bring to your audience's awareness is, for the most part, what is being sold by well-intentioned practitioners, therapists, spiritual teachers, coaches, is almost always repackaged or regurgitated concepts that have already existed. And there's value in them, but these ideas and concepts and principles have value usually to gain awareness and to manage the people-pleasing, the perfectionism, the anxiety. It's great at management, but it doesn't solve. And this industry doesn't innovate, so we're not getting better results. The first reason that your audience isn't getting better results is because this industry doesn't innovate. And on some level, unconsciously, they're not motivated to solve anything. It's way more lucrative to always have people coming back for the next book, the next section, the next session, the next retreat. We offer one program. Because if we're doing our job, I shouldn't have a second program and a third program. If we know, when you take your car to a mechanic, you go and you're like, here's the problem, and they bring it back and fix it. Your mechanic doesn't say, come back next year for our annual fall tune-up retreat and get ready to read my next book called The Inner Ferrari from Within. No, you take it in and you solve it. This industry doesn't solve things, and so your audience hasn't gotten solutions. And the reason is, even if this industry wanted to solve it, primarily, one of the reasons your audience isn't getting better results is because it's really confusing.
Can you say more about that? What's really confusing?
Just what to do, what to try, who's got what, what's going to work. there's so many different ideas. Is it my ego? Is it my past? Is it my hormones? Is it my society? Is it what my dad said at soccer camp? What is it? Do I walk on coals? Do I do an ice bucket challenge? Do I meditate? If so, for how long? Do I burn the ego? And there's so many different concepts. Often there's not clear instructions on what to do for how long and when. And it's super confusing. And then people don't get better results. And then they think there's something wrong with me. So the first thing we did as engineers is we said, can we simplify this? Because if you really know something, you can simplify it. Newton took all of motion on the planet, got it down to 3 laws. Einstein took this complicated thing of theory of relativity, got it down to 1 equation, E equals mc squared. If you really know something, you should be able to make it simple. So I'm going to show you one insight that can make your entire journey towards full freedom simple. What we discovered was that it feels like, and we are taught, and we are marketed, the idea that we have multiple problems. I have perfectionism. I am a people pleaser. I've got anxiety. They feel like different problems. But what the research showed, and our key breakthrough was, you do not have multiple problems. What you have is multiple symptoms of one singular thing, which is fear. You could say you are a procrastinator, or you could say you have a fear of starting and finishing something. You could say you are a perfectionist, or you could say you have a fear of making a mistake. You could say you're a people pleaser, or you could say you're afraid people won't like you, so you put them first and yourself. Yeah. You could say you lack confidence, or you could say you have a fear of being your natural, true, authentic self. You could say you have anxiety, or you could just say, I have a lot of fear, and I call that high level of fear anxiety. Can you see on some level that what we're experiencing aren't problems, but rather symptoms of one singular thing, which is fear? Does that track and make sense to you?
1,000%, because even as you say that, I know from experience and from my own life, every one of those symptoms that you spoke of, I feel in my being that what I'm feeling is fear. I know that fear underpins every single one of my patterns, symptoms, or masks, because this is masks off for people pleasers and perfectionists. Any mask that any person wears to cover and hide their true self, what underpins is fear. Will I be rejected? Will I be abandoned? Fear of, will I belong? It's all fear.
Hear it, we think, that makes a lot of sense. It's not a huge newsflash that fear is underneath us, and when we're afraid, we make choices and behaviors that don't serve us. When I went for help with my procrastination, that coach didn't talk about fear. It was goal setting, it was accountability, it was motivation, and all that was managing the symptom. When I had perfectionism, the person said, well, you need to reframe and understand that mistakes are part of it. Just trying to address, and the person never said, oh, by the way, you're scared to death. So the reason your audience hasn't been able to solve any of this and get better results is primarily you're sold books, retreats, coachings, apps, targeting the symptom, and you can never solve it. So you'll spend an entire lifetime managing and gaining awareness of the symptom and never get to the root cause. So whenever hiring a coach, a therapist, going to a retreat, a book, anything, first ask yourself, is this going towards the root cause? Because if it's not, you're probably not going to solve it, and you're probably going to, at best, just manage this stuff, which again is exhausting. So that's the first thing. Now I'll explain a bit more about the research we found of why we're afraid and how to solve it. But first, I want to tell your audience, the reason you haven't solved this stuff, you are not broken. There is nothing wrong with you. It's that well-intentioned experts sent you to the symptom instead of the root cause. Can you see that if you go to the root cause, you got a much better shot at solving something?
Yes, the same applies for me with my chronic health condition. I have an autoimmune disease with many chronic symptoms, and I'll go to this doctor and that doctor to address this symptom and this symptom. And then this past year, I wanted to work with a functional medicine doctor because I want to get to the root cause of why I'm having all of these physical chronic symptoms. And even still, the functional medicine doctor didn't necessarily get to the root cause. But do you know what the root cause is, in my opinion, and what I'm getting to?
You tell.
Fear,
Shut the front
anxiety.
door.
Yes. fear, anxiety. It's all emotional. Like that is the root cause of these chronic symptoms. My GI issues, my bladder issues, whatever, all the symptoms I have, root cause, fear and anxiety.
Yes, and you brought up a lot of good points. First of all, this is about being more educated and mature as we trust people and give our time and money. I too had a chronic health issue, and I was going to experts, a GI expert, an energy expert. Well, the experts have one little territory that they know, and they think that's the best territory. When you go to them, they say, I'm an expert in this, it's this, and this. Experts know something, but they have a limited perspective because they think their thing is the best and just teach that and make money off that. If their area of expertise solves it, great, go to that expert. But the experts aren't solving it because they're not investigators. They're just selling their favorite thing, which is great for management, but they're not going to get to the root cause. To get to the root cause, you'd have to abandon the thing that you like and go after the solution. The reason engineers are a great candidate to find this is there was nothing that we were teaching. I wasn't a mindset coach.
Yeah.
I wasn't a therapist. I said, I'm not attached to any perspective. I'm attached to a solution, which made me curious to go looking for a solution. But most experts aren't problem solvers. Most experts are selling their specific area of expertise, which is usually management. But absolutely, when it comes to the physical body, everybody knows, go to the root cause, go to the root cause. But when it comes to big thera, oftentimes we'll spend 7, 8, 9 years focused on the symptoms. So when you hire anybody in this industry, try to find people that are getting as close to the root cause as possible. The reason our model is so effective, we're not better, we're not fancier. We just went to the root cause, which is the fear.
I was going
Your
to say
audience
that.
already knows that fear is a problem. If your body is afraid, we are not meant to function under fear, and it will just wreak havoc, everything from your behaviors, your procrastination, your people-pleasing, your self-doubt, your overwhelm, but absolutely it manifests in the body. I can't tell you how many clients, I had a client come to me, crippling anxiety, people-pleasing, and perfectionism. He said, I've tried everything. Nothing has worked. He said, I found out what you're doing. I spoke to somebody at a conference who had similar symptoms and claimed that you solved it. And he also said, I found out that you don't charge people at the beginning. You only charge people at the end when you get results. He said, is that serious? I said, yeah. He said, why? I said, we have such a high success rate, we can charge you at the end. My dad said results matter. If we don't help you, we don't charge you. But I know people to a tune of $1 trillion a year that will totally charge you, not help you. And so this person came to us, and in about 4 weeks into our full system, his anxiety was down from about 8 out of 10 for 6 hours a day down to about 3 out of 10 for about an hour a day. His people pleasing was great. He started speaking up to his wife, getting his needs met. Of course, she found it sexy. It saved the marriage, a bunch of other things. But this was remarkable. Week 5, he said, Daniel, I just went off my ADHD and my Parkinson's medication. What?
Wow. That's
what? And once he said it, it made sense. ADHD, you have trouble focusing. You have bad attention. If you're scared, it's hard to focus. But also, if you are scared, it takes such a toll on your body that it would make sense that you would start to shake. I'm not an expert in Parkinson's, so I'm not going to claim I know. I will tell you, this guy got off his Parkinson's medication when we did an emotional process which lowered the fear. So yes, 100%, the fear thing is at the root of so many things, and that's the power of going after the actual root cause because of the implications for everybody.
Okay, so we know that it's important to go to the root cause. And then what if listeners are listening to this episode and they want to be more free without giving the full program that you have, what can you say to them?
Well, first of all, 2 things. I'm going to explain to your audience where the fear is coming from. That will make sense. It's a new perspective on fear and hidden source of fear that we discovered. The key to it was solvable. Because someone can say, well, my fear is from my past, my fear is from this, my fear is from that. But it doesn't mean that understanding lends itself to a solution. We found a major source of fear that is solvable. In terms of an action, first I'll say, I'm going to be sharing a lot of things with your audience, and your audience is going to go, well, that sounds good, but is that going to work? Or that sounds a little too good to be true. Like, you're just going to solve this? I've had this my whole life. You can't solve it. So at the end, I'm going to send your audience to my website, danielpackard.com, to get a free training called Pathway to Permanent Results. In there, you're going to do a deep dive with what I'm going to be talking about now, including applying one of our techniques. When you apply that technique, you will feel measurably calmer. When you feel it for yourself, you'll know that what I'm saying is true. Kim, you listened to the training that I want to share with your audience. Without going in too much, do you think there's information in that training that is valuable or could be helpful?
Yes, I 100% experienced myself. I had some anxiety before you took me through the training, and then noticing a considerable difference where I did feel calmer because I had to recall a situation that was triggering or that would normally produce a lot of fear or anxiety. And so as that memory or situation came to mind, I would feel my anxiety go up by just recalling that particular trigger. And then after going through the sequence in your training, I noticed that I felt considerably calmer.
Yes. And the reason that matters is it wasn't just theory. You got a result that you could feel.
Did.
And my dad said results matter. So in this training, we like to show people what we're teaching isn't just another theory. Try it for yourself and feel it for yourself. That's going to give you hope. So again, later I'll send your audience to my website, danielpackard.com, probably in the show notes.
Absolutely.
That is what I want for your audience. Now, here's the two key discoveries that we made in addressing fear that your audience can either appreciate or use in their own lives. So the first big thing we said was, okay, it's not a huge discovery that fear is an issue. Yes, maybe people don't focus on it enough, but people know overcome your fear, face the fear. People know fear is a problem. But what we saw was most things around fear was overcome your fear, face your fear, change your mindset around the fear. And that's great. It's temporary. If you overcome the fear, great, you move forward. One downside, the fear is still there. It's not gone. Then you got to overcome it again. Then you got to face it again. So A, it's exhausting trying to do this, but B, usually it's going to slow you down. Even if you can, it won't stop you. It's exhausting constantly. So we said, we're engineers. Can we heal the fear? Can we just gone? Is it possible? So the first thing we looked at, what was being taught that isn't getting great results. So we looked at therapy, we looked at spirituality, we looked at personal development and self-help, and we found that the primary approach and what we're taught is that fear is a problem of the mind. We're told to quiet the ego, change your mindset, change your scarcity thinking. There's cognitive behavioral therapy. They give you pills to target the neurotransmitters of your mind. It's called mental health. So we are told fear is a problem of the mind. And it feels like it. The mind can say some scary negative stuff and then you feel afraid. It sounds like it's the root cause. That approach doesn't ever solve it. It manages it. And we said, well, if it's the root cause, it should be solving it. We saw that fear does not originate in the mind. Fear originates in the body. When you are afraid, do you say, I think fear or I feel fear?
I feel it.
Do you say, I think anxious or I feel anxious?
I feel it.
Where do you feel it? Your chest, your heart, your stomach, your gut? Do those sound like mind words or body words?
I'm laughing because as you say it out loud, it's like, yeah, duh, it's body.
It should be a no-brainer. It's in the body. And yet it's called mental health, and we're mental health experts. No, guys, I'm sorry, you're not. You're not experts. It's not mental health. It's actually physiological health. Fear starts in the body, then spreads to the mind. Yes, if you want to manage fear, you can manage it at the mind level, but the solution is in the body because that's how we are engineered. We are engineered that the body feels things that the body needs to stay alive. Then our mind is a little computer to try to keep the body alive. You feel hunger in your body first. Then your mind senses the hunger and tries to figure out how to get food. If you're in the jungle and hear a sound in the bushes, you feel fear in the body first. Then the mind kicks in and tries to look for threats and solve the threat. Now we found a hidden mystery reason why we're afraid in our body. Our mind doesn't know that and thinks there's a threat. And then your mind goes looking for scary things. Oh my God, I'm not good enough. What if they don't like me? What if I don't make money? That'll keep you stuck in a loop of fear. It's not that the mind doesn't have a role. Fear is originating in the body, then spreads to the mind. But if your audience is sent to the symptom level, the mind, you're never going to solve it. You can use meditation to temporarily calm down, but because the body hasn't been permanently addressed, it comes back. Now, we know that the body is actually part of this because people meditate and do breathing exercises, quiets the mind. Or people who exercise, you exercise in the body, your mind quiets down, the fear goes down. So the body clearly is a good place to start. Now, those approaches are temporary. We found a permanent solution. But it does demonstrate, if you stop and think about it, does it make sense that fear originates in the body and then spreads to the mind and not the other way around?
I'm thinking to myself, geez, where were you, Danielle, like 10 years ago when I started my path of spending hundreds of thousands of dollars as well? Because I did the same thing. I tried to solve the solution by changing my mind and changing the way that I thought. And I did that for so long. It helped, like you said, it took me to a certain point, but then that point came to a dead end until I did start to address my body, my nervous system. And then I noticed considerable healing and change. So if there's anything else that you want to say about that, I would love for you to share. I really want you to share with the listeners what is possible for them with doing this work. What's the paradise? What's the yummy juiciness of life that they can experience by going through your training and learning how to permanently get rid of anxiety?
One of my favorite topics. It's one that I get to experience every day because I wake up in the yumminess. I wake up every morning with what I call a default tranquility. It's my baseline. I don't have to meditate. I don't have to affirm. I don't have to do incense. I don't have to calm myself down. I'm just calm. And then from that place of calmness, my heart opens up. I do what I love. I can't procrastinate if I tried. So I'm always in purpose. So I'm deeply fulfilled. I'm adaptable when life comes at me. There's no fear to slow me down. I just pivot and adjust. I, on a cellular level, could give two poops what anybody thinks of me. I used to be crippled by what people think of me. People pleasing doesn't exist. I know how to speak up and get my needs met because there's no fear there. In terms of authenticity, I used to wear a mask. I used to pretend, and all I know how to do now is just be me. From that place of low fear, not only do the symptoms go away, but more importantly, tons more energy, fulfillment, joy, and I show up for the people that I care about. You can go to a therapist or read a book to help lower anxiety, and you can manage these things or manage the people pleasing. But it takes energy, and you'll never fulfill your true purpose until you solve it. Now, our clients, I had a client, an architect from Toronto, who had spent all this money managing the self-doubt and people pleasing. And it was better, but he was still always managing it. It was still always there holding him back. When he solved it, he had more energy, more joy, more fulfillment, better father, made more money. Everything got better. It gave him access to the best version of himself. That's what we were designing. But I really want to make sure I tell people one piece so they understand where the fear is coming from, because that was the big discovery. And I want to make sure people know. Do we have time for that?
We do have time.
Because other people are aware that the body is an important role. Like you just said, it took you a while to get there. While it's not the typical approach, a lot of people, even just experientially, get that the body is an important part. We found a reason that the body was afraid, that if not addressed, would continue to make you afraid. Basically, we saw that the beauty of the body is that it's systems. It's a bunch of systems. Skeleton's a system, heart's a system, eyes are a system, tongue is a system. It's all systems. And the beauty of systems is that they're kind of predictable. And there's one rule God gives us, wisdom gives us a body. This incredible machine. You know how much it would cost to buy eyeballs on AliExpress? Like one eyeball. We get two eyeballs. You get a tongue and a mouth, and you get to feel love. It's all for free under one condition. You got to take care of it. All systems in the body have basic hygiene and nutrients that it needs. And as long as you give that system hygiene and nutrients, it runs properly. And we know we need to drink enough water or else there's problems. We know we have to get vitamin C or else you can get scurvy. We need enough sleep. If you get certain systems the proper nutrients, they run properly. What we saw was nobody ever studied the emotional system and the nutrients it needed. Did anybody ever sit you down and say, here's what your emotional system needs every day, the basic nutrients? Do this and you'll have a healthy emotional system.
Absolutely not.
No. In fact, we're told, get over it. Don't take it personally. Don't worry about it. It's not the end of the world. We're taught to ignore and neglect our emotional systems. Since nobody was taught how to get emotional nutrients, your emotional system is now running at a nutrient deficit and is malfunctioning. There's a switch that turns fear on and off. And that switch is now stuck in the on position. That is creating a lot of the fear underneath the anxiety, the procrastination, the people pleasing. The reason is that you were never taught this. It's not your fault. But if you were never taught to give your emotional system proper nutrients, can you see that that system would start to malfunction and might have the fear switch turned on? Does that at least make sense?
Totally.
So that was the big breakthrough. If you don't learn to get proper nutrients to your emotional systems, you're always going to have a malfunctioning emotional system. There's always going to be fear, and then you're always going to have the symptoms of fear. Our technology makes it very simple so that in 6 weeks, you understand how to get proper nutrients to your emotional system. When it is properly nutrified, the fear switch shuts off and the fear goes significantly down. When the fear goes down, the anxiety goes down or away, the procrastination goes away, the people-pleasing, the self-doubt, the overthinking, it just goes away and leaves you. If you didn't have all this fear, if you didn't have the fear, the anxiety, the worry, the overwhelm, how would your life be better?
You named some of it, but I'll add some more. Complete and total freedom, inner liberation, peace, joy, abundance, flow and ease. Everything in life is yummy. Every obstacle, every piece of adversity, you look at it as an opportunity to grow. Like I get really super excited when I have challenges because I say, how will this help me grow? How is this here for me rather than this is happening to me? So I'm no longer a victim. I'm empowered. Yeah, those are all the yummies.
Yes, that's some of the yummies. It's freedom. And your audience knows this because there's moments when, for whatever reason, they get access to it occasionally. They know it's there. I had a client 6 months ago who said, yeah, there was a week where I wasn't anxious. My sales were better. I felt better. My sex life, like everything was better. He said, but it was a week. And I said, yeah, I know, because you didn't get the proper nutrients. So what if these states that occasionally we hit, what if that was your
default?
What I've shared, and I'll wrap this up, I know it probably makes sense, but I don't expect your audience to just believe me. It's a new way of thinking. I don't expect your audience to just believe me. A lot of people come on shows like this and claim I've got the better. So I'm not claiming to have the best thing. What I'm presenting to you is a perspective that could help you get better results. I encourage your audience to get this free training, to try one of our techniques, to prove it to yourself. Don't just believe me, have an experience that you can trust. But the only reason you would get that free training is if you're curious. So I just want to recap. We learned a lot. This is what the research showed to get better results. Does it make sense that what we're experiencing, a lot of what we're experiencing are just different symptoms of fear? Does that make sense?
Yes.
Does it make sense that perhaps fear is not originating in the mind, but actually is originating in the body? Does that make sense?
That makes total sense. And I'm so glad you clarified that. Important point to make.
If you didn't know that and you were sent to the mind level, you could spend a lifetime in symptom management and never solve it. Does it make sense that there are systems in the body, including the emotional system, and if you were never taught to give that system proper nutrients, it would malfunction?
It makes total sense.
Does it make sense that when the emotional system malfunctions, that fear switch, which should turn on and off at appropriate times, might be just stuck in the on position, making you afraid?
Yes.
Does it make sense if you don't get the proper nutrients and that fear switch is stuck on, then all the symptoms of fear are always going to be there. At best, you can manage them. Does that make sense?
Yes, unfortunately.
That's the bad news. But the good news is if you knew how to easily and quickly give the emotional system the proper nutrients it needs, it comes back to automatic health. The fear switch turns off, so the fear lowers, and then all the symptoms of fear lower. Does that make sense?
Including chronic health issues too. I want to add that in. Yes.
Yes. We've had people, their heart rate, their arteries, their sleep. I had a professional athlete who had better recovery, faster recovery. Everything runs better when you're not terrified since you were 5 years old.
Yes.
Spoiler alert, big news flash. And does it make sense if you just knew how, and this is what we teach people, that you could apply nutrients to the emotional system, it comes back to its natural health, the fear switch turns off. Not only could you be free of the symptoms of fear, but then you could take all that energy to just be fulfilled, joyful, show up for the people that you love, care about, bring more value to the world, make more money, and just be happier. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Good. What I've shared has you at least curious if this could maybe help you, but you want proof, then go to danielpackard.com for free, download, get Pathway to Permanent Results, which Kim did and got results. Try that and see for yourself. And when you get an experience of feeling much calmer incredibly quickly, that will give you trust that what we do is effective, but most importantly, it will work for you, which will give you hope that you do not have to live like this. This is not your fault. You just were not given a proper system to address the root cause and get yourself nutrients. I wake up every morning fully nutrified, and you get so much more stuff with way less work, which is efficiency, which engineers love, and I'm sure your audience loves.
Thank you for giving the listeners the permission to take themselves off the hook for being at fault. That was beautiful. The way you broke it down, like thinking about giving nutrients to the emotional system. I never thought about it that way. And I love that connection and correlation that you made. So that was helpful as well. You said you were going to bring value at the beginning of this episode. And Daniel, you brought so much value. I appreciate you being here. Are there any last points or words you want to share?
No, I mean, thank you for appreciating me. As you can tell, I care. And this energy, this freedom, and this exuberance, this is also a symptom that I'm high on my own supply. I went through our own program. I was an anxious, insecure, unfree, exhausted people pleaser, probably wearing a mask with clown makeup on. Like, you name it, I did it. I sit before you now as this free, authentic, messy, sloppy, beautifully sensitive, need-meting human creature. And I'm not better. I'm not enlightened. I didn't lick a psychedelic frog. I just did what worked, which is to get the system that controls fear proper nutrients so it runs. The one thing I'll tell your audience is probably think, oh, this is a good episode. This is really interesting. Take action.
Yeah.
Take action. I hope 30 years from now, what we teach is the norm. Right now, this is cutting edge stuff. So if you heard this, something bigger than you wanted you to hear this episode, trust your intuition.
Hey, Kim Gross here. Thank you so much for tuning into this episode of Masks Off for People Pleasers and Perfectionists. I invite you to hop on over to my website, kimgrosscoaching.com. Right there on the front page, there's a quiz for people pleasers and perfectionists. You can find out if you have tendencies. You can also get into my newsletter where you will be given valuable content every week on different topics I share here in the podcast. And if you really did enjoy this episode, if you found it helpful, if you found it valuable, please go to, if you're on YouTube, go and subscribe. If you're listening on your favorite podcast platform, then I invite you to leave a review. You can even do a star review. It doesn't have to be a written review. If you know of someone who can benefit from this podcast or this particular episode, please share it with them. I'll see you next time.